started. Welcome everyone to NetElixir's 2021 Emerging Paid Social Trends for Retail webinar. My name is Heather Dessette and I'm NetElixir's Event Marketing Manager. We're very happy to have you here and I hope everyone's ready to get social. So to kick off, I'm just going to go quickly through what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to go over a little bit about NetElixir and who we are. Next, we're going to invite our team who's going to review the US social trends for 2021 and beyond. Last, we'll share with you 5 tips to ace your social strategy, and we'll, of course, take any questions from the audience at the end. To kick off this social hour, I wanted to warm us up with a quick poll question. We would like to know, which channel do you plan to use more in 2021? Do you plan on using TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter? All right, awesome. It looks like we have a few TikTokers, so that's great. So next, let's start diving into today's presentation. I'm going to go over a little bit about NetElixir. Here at NetElixir, we have 17 years experience helping retail brands find and engage high-value customers using our proprietary tool, Elixir Insights, which it allows us to acquire game-changing insights to really help our clients. Next, I'm going to go over a list of our solutions, which are listed here to the left. And of course, we are proud to be premier partners with UPS, Bing, Google, and Facebook. And below, you'll see a list of a few of our clients we have a privilege of working with. As you can see, they vary from food to fashion. All right. So before I pass it along, if you're not on NetElixir Social, I highly recommend you begin to follow us. So here are a list of some of our social accounts. We're constantly sharing our latest insights and would love for our audience to join the discussion by using the hashtag NXInsights. Also, there is a quick survey that's going to appear on your screen at the end of today's presentation. If there's any questions that we don't get a chance to get to, you can submit them there and one of our experts will reach out. Also, if you're interested in learning about a proprietary tool and how you can use it to find high-value customers, we'll be happy to schedule a demo with you. You can just make a note of that in the survey at the end of this presentation. All right, so what you guys have all been waiting for, I'm very excited to be joined today by our team. I would like to introduce Zara. Zara is NetElixir's social media senior analyst. She has a strong journalistic background and social media management background. She currently leads influencer marketing and organic social for NetElixir. So welcome, Zara. Next, I'd like to welcome Jennifer. Jennifer is our search marketing analyst. She has a passion for social media marketing, and her expertise includes influencer marketing management, Google advertising, and organic social management. Welcome, Jennifer. And then last but certainly not least, I would like to welcome our Senior Director of Digital Strategy, Manish Mohan. Manish is responsible for driving NetElixir's retail-focused paid media strategies, spanning from search, social, and marketplaces. So welcome, Manish.
Right. Thanks, Heather. Welcome, everyone. Great to be here for our first social webinar of 2021. And as Heather mentioned, social media has been quite an interesting space during the pandemic, with a lot of consumers moving online, discovering new brands that they have that they can shop from, and social media played an integral role in all of this. And as a retail-focused agency, NetElixir was right in the middle of all this action last year, working very closely with our retail partners, our clients, and helping them scale new heights on their social media strategy. Before we get into the specific 5 tips that we have for you for 2021 and beyond, we wanted to spend a few minutes understanding what exactly does the market look like from a social media standpoint, specifically from a US perspective. It goes without saying that last year, as I mentioned, a lot of consumers discovered new brands forced by the pandemic. And while this happened, a lot of the retail brands also increased their social ad spending quite significantly. And as you can see in this graph here, this was data shared by eMarketer last year. The total ad spending in 2021 is expected to cross $49 billion, which is roughly 21% up compared to last year. And the interesting part here is that it is expected to continue growing over the next couple of years. Understandably, the rate of growth potentially come down from 21% this year to roughly around 16% next year, as the market opens up, as people go back to their normal lives. But The bottom line is that the growth in social media is here to stay. And it is high time that brands take notice of this and come up with a strategy to address wherever the consumers are on social media. We need to have a strategy to follow them there. Now, this growth that you saw in the last slide was not really from one specific platform. Understandably, I think we all know that Facebook and Instagram have been dominating the social media market in the US and probably globally for the last few years. But since 2018, it has been very fascinating to see how the new platforms have been emerging and they are making a mark for themselves in the market. The first one, and something that at NetElixir we have been following very closely, is Pinterest. And as you can see on the top right of your screen, the total ad revenues from Pinterest have also been growing. And Pinterest was one of the channels which was always probably a market leader when it comes to inspired shopping. But when it came to lower funnel activity or driving actual revenue, Pinterest was not really top of mind for many brands. That has started changing starting last year as Pinterest improved its overall ad product offering, integrated the shopping ads, and they also launched the shoppable feature where you can now shop from a lifestyle imagery. These three developments have led to the massive growth for Pinterest from a subscriber standpoint, as well as a monetizable standpoint. Snapchat has been following quite closely, though the demographic is a lot younger there. Snapchat also made a lot of advancements, especially when it comes to the AR part, in terms of augmented reality. And Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest are closely following those footsteps now. But again, essentially the takeaway from this slide is that going into 2021 and beyond, we have to watch all the social networks very closely and figure out the right mix that will make sense for your brand. We can't really talk about social media without talking about TikTok, right? And TikTok was pretty much in the news in 2020 for a lot of reasons. We will not get into all the controversy surrounding TikTok, but what was fascinating is by the end of 2021 and end of 2020, TikTok had US as its largest customer base. It was banned in India, and beyond that, with around 73 million users in 2021, it is expected to be the largest platform for the US market. And the bigger takeaway, which is I think equally fascinating, is that by the end of 2021, TikTok will potentially reach 1 in every 4 internet users in the US. And that is a big statement for pretty much every other brand out there. Because if you are talking to your customers online, then they are most likely on TikTok. And we've been also looking at very closely as to how exactly has TikTok been growing. And the straightforward answer is that TikTok has been grabbing a lot of market share from Snapchat, while Instagram has been maintaining its dominance and in fact growing, as you can see here in this table, all the way from the fall of 2017 through 2020. Instagram's market share has been fairly consistent with some highs and lows. Snapchat has seen a slight decline, and that essentially has moved over to TikTok from a user base. And another key component here, as you can see here, Facebook went from 9% to around 2%. And I'm sure a lot of the brands in the room today would have seen something very similar, with most of your consumers engaging a lot more on Instagram. And Facebook, while it continues to host all the platforms under the Facebook Ads Manager, from an engagement standpoint, all the action now is on pretty much on Instagram. Heather, over to you.
All right, we're going to launch one more poll question. So get ready. Here's our second poll question. So we want to know, what is your primary goal for paid social media? Is it to generate leads, create brand awareness, attract new followers, or sell products? All right, perfect. For those of you selling products, you are definitely joining the right webinar. So I hope you have some good insights that you can use from this webinar today. So I'll continue with the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. Perfect. So I think based on that poll, I think the The first response obviously was selling products, which we completely understand. And as Heather rightly said, that is one of the focus areas for NetElixir as a retail first agency. We've always tried to strike the right balance when it comes to paid social between brand awareness and performance marketing. And what has been very fascinating, especially last year, is that we have had many instances with some of our retail clients wherein paid social ended up driving a better bottom line than some of the other traditional lower funnel channels. While this is not the case across the board, it was very encouraging to see that social media has now effectively transitioned from a pure branding play to a platform where you can pretty much do branding and lower funnel conversion activity at the same time. So having said all that, we as a team, we came up with 5 specific tips to improve and your overall social strategy this year. And what you will see in these 5 strategies is that it is not restricted specifically to paid social. The reason being, paid social in itself is just one distribution point. There are many other components within social strategy that are important to make paid social also successful. So without any further ado, I'll jump into the first one, which might sound very obvious and almost like a no-brainer. But essentially, the bottom line is be real. And this is a message for pretty much every brand out there, including us as an agency. The reason being, on the social platform, while reach, impressions are all great to have, the authenticity of your content goes a long way in determining whether customers stay loyal to your brand or not. And what we believe is that this can very effectively be done by having a very holistic, organic social strategy before you get into paid social, influencer marketing, and all the other elements. So with that, I would like to invite Zara to take you through some of our specific organic social recommendations. Zara, over to you.
Thank you, Manish. So in our digital age, when we are overloaded with information and advertising, the real things we strive for are authenticity and honesty. In a data report by Stack LA, 90% of consumers said authenticity is important when deciding which brands they like and support. And brand authenticity is all about being genuine and real. When you're an authentic company, you're very honest about your mission and your values, your policies are transparent, and you create an emotional connection with your clients through organic social. And a great way authenticity has become, the great thing is that authenticity has really become a big marketing trend, and it's not going anywhere. Your customers want to learn everything about the services and products they're purchasing. They want to know if you can be trusted, if your brand is true to them, and if your brand essentially stands for what they stand for. And we know that ads are temporary and that your organic social strategy is, what will help customers grow with your brand long term. And some ways to achieve authenticity through your organic strategy is by being honest and real, right? You don't want to pretend to be a brand you're not. In a study conducted by eMarketer, it was reported that 68% of US adults said that a lack of legitimacy, and they really defined it as deceptive content, and that can be misinformation, it can be clickbait content. They really said that that impacted their trust in social media platforms. And understand that there will be criticism, right? It's practically impossible that everything you do is perfect as a brand. But when that does happen, you want to own it. You want to be real about how you take on feedback and criticism. You don't want to be afraid to apologize. And at the same time, accept the praise that comes your way. And the initial step to building brand authenticity can be really coming back to your roots, remembering what your main purpose is as a company, what your values are, and what you stand for. And in a report by Market Force, 81% of people said that they're influenced by what their friends share online. And how many of us can relate to that? This is where it becomes really crucial to become a trusted expert in your field. You have the insight, the wisdom and practical knowledge in your subject and field of expertise. And you probably do take that for granted, but deep knowledge comes from experience, which is extremely valuable for your audience. Being authentic also means being open to sharing what you have with the world. You don't have to give away your brand secrets and your business secrets, but your company uses, if you use a certain approach that no one else in the industry is using or is taking part in, brag about it. If you've worked out a useful method, tell people how you got there. And people will take that knowledge and share it with their friends and family, essentially promoting your brand for you. And a huge part of your organic social strategy is keeping brand consistency. In our modern world, when everything changes in the blink of an eye, it's really important for your brand to keep its consistency through marketing, through all your marketing and sales channels that you do have. And this way, your audience can recognize you in an instant and know that your article, your video, your email can be trusted. And to do this, you can, make sure that your branding and design are consistent everywhere across, your content, whether that's on your website, your marketing materials, social media. And then second, you want to develop a unique brand voice. The best way to accomplish this is through brand storytelling. People like to hear stories, not just promotional and marketing texts, but real stories about the challenges your brand faces and how you overcame them to grow your business. Creating an authentic brand story helps you connect with your audience really on an emotional level, which further improves and builds that trust, right? We're trying to build that trust. And some examples of great storytelling are really listed here. You can see on the slide. You can, just truly share a relatable story, and that can help, accumulate more likes. You can ask a simple question, and that can help generate more comments. And lastly, you want to create easy and clear communication with your audience. When you've established your voice, the next step is to really develop a comfortable communication with your clients. Good communication can work real wonders for brands. The most essential part is to remember that you're not just informing your audience about your news releases, you're really inviting them to find new approaches and solutions together so you guys can discuss pain points and ideas that are really relevant to both you and your clients. And a great approach is to be everywhere your customers are, right? You want to research what social media they use, where are they spending their time, where do they reach out to you, and make it very convenient for them to get their answers and leave their feedback whenever they want. And to help you guys get started, we will be sharing NetElixir's ebook, A Guide to Social Media Best Practices, written by our very own Danielle Klemenchowski, our content writer. And you guys can, the information's here. You can download it at that link.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Awesome. So once we have figured out the organic strategy, it's time to move on to our second tip for the day, which is more so shifting gears and focusing more on the consumers now. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the pandemic understandably forced a lot of consumers to discover new brands. And it also motivated a lot of customers to shop online for the very first time. This was a data that Google had shared last year, where over 40% of customers in certain verticals were shopping online for the very first time. Now, what this means for you as a brand is that a lot of these customers have their own private networks. Right? We have always looked at influencer marketing in a traditional way, where you have an influencer who does that in a professional way, and they have their own means and methods to do that. And that is absolutely relevant going forward. But what we are now realizing is that a lot of your existing customers who are socially active in their own small networks, they may have only 200 followers, they may have only 500 followers, but they have a very strong following. When they say something about a brand, people listen to them. So that is the next tip that we have for you, that look carefully within your customer base and try to see if there are potential influencers out there. And to discuss more on the strategy, I'd like to invite Jen.
All right. Hi, everyone. So in regards to influencer marketing, we really want to have it supplement your organic strategy to see real growth. So when working with influencers, the work doesn't really stop when they make their initial post. So sharing their content, tagging them in reports and reposts, and commenting on their posts really helps their audience interact with your brand. And this is before you even sign with the influencer. So followers these days can sniff out a shallow campaign a mile away. They're seeing their most popular people that they follow. They see these campaigns coming through on their feed. So you want to make sure it's truly as organic as possible. And the way to do that is to be interacting with that influencer before you even launch. So this also helps you, gives you time to also vet that influencer to make sure it's truly someone you want to work with. This is a very personal relationship, and they're allowing you to come into pretty much their community, and they're showing you to their friends and people they trust. So it's a big deal in the influencer space right now to make sure they're working with brands that they also want to work with and truly care about the product they're promoting. So for professional influencers, the process can definitely be very manual. So you want to have it as lean as possible. So competition these days in the influencer space is getting more and more fierce amongst brands. We're seeing the big brands like HelloFresh and Target really going after influencers that you yourself might want to sign up. So a way to really help you get above and beyond is to really lean down your process on signing them. So a good way to actually find influencers these days is through an internal means on your website. So when you have a customer check out, it could be actually very helpful if you have a way for them to sign up or to put their Instagram handles. So you know they're already someone who likes your product. You can go in internally at your leisure and seeing, oh, they have a good following, we like what they're doing, and they're already a customer of ours. So that already starts the conversation. And instead of doing that, if you want to go out and find them in the wild, after you find someone that you want to work with, you can start by outreaching them, and doing the following steps could really help that process. So outlining your collaboration details ahead of time. So that means going with your social media team and talking to them and seeing what would they like to do. And another easy way to really bog down that the traction is in having a contract ready for them to sign and read. Having too many details at once can really fluster them. So having a very lean contract, everything's bulleted and everything's nice and neat will help them actually sign it much quicker. Another one is knowing your company's do's and don'ts when an influencer is to post. So a lot of times companies don't want the influencer to mention their competition. You want the influencer to really keep the post just on your product and your company and their values. Another like do's and don'ts, don't have anything too crazy on your post, but you also want to give your influencer as much creative freedom as you possibly can, because in the end of the day, they know what their audience wants the most, and they know what their audience engages with the most, and that's what you signed up with them for. You saw their content, you love their content, so letting them do that is the best thing for you. Another tip is to have a consistent point of contact. So having someone the influencer can talk to and knows who to email immediately with any questions that they have will definitely help them and help the process continually be smoother. And also, communication is all you have in this, so you want to make it as easy as possible. So moving forward, influencers, especially historically micro-influencers, have been the most affordable in the space. Micro-influencers are influencers with 10,000 to 100,000 followers. But right now, with the rise of competition from big names like HelloFresh and Target, it's kind of changed the landscape. And when you're outreaching the influencers, now you have to start to be prepared that they are going to send you their rate sheets. And now there's other agencies they have their own managers, thinking like how models have their own modeling agency. So in that terms, paying does have its perks. Paying the influencer for their time has its definite perks in terms of content quality. Their content usually much higher, and it's something that you would actually want to use on your ad campaigns, whether it be Google or just reposting on your feed. You would definitely want to work with someone whose pictures you actually like. So instead, and also a way to think about this is instead of paying for a professional photographer with studio lighting and renting out a studio space, you're using that funds that you allocated over to influencers instead. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 deal. You get the content that you needed and that it's also organic and it's also being advertised directly to someone. So you're really getting a good bang for your buck when working with influencers these days. And another one that's moving forward is shoppable live streams. So shoppable live streams are rising in popularity. It's kind of looking toward to be the younger generation's QVC. TikTok is working with Walmart to help sell their products on the platform, selling their products through the video campaigns that they're doing. And also Amazon has also launched their own influencer program last year. So we can guess that they are going to be moving into a similar space as well in 2021. So we should also keep an eye on that going into there. And lastly, when it comes to shipping your products, first impressions are the most important. And most likely the product that you're sending the influencer is the actual first physical contact you have with that influencer. You've gone through emails and DMs and maybe even some Zoom calls, but once they get your product, that is their first impression. So you want to make it look good. Specialized packaging will make them want to flaunt on their socials how important they are as well. So remembering the fact that influencers like to look good, that is their whole base. They take pictures of themselves and their family and their hobbies. They like to look good in front of others. So giving them that chance to brag about what they've gotten and received definitely makes the experience even more better.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. This is some great tips on the influencer side. And this is definitely an area that we are very excited about in the years to come. And it's evolving at a very fast pace.
Oh, yeah.
With that, we'll move into the third tip. Now we are shifting gears a bit. We are getting into more on the paid social and the performance marketing side. And this actually connects back to the very first slide that we had today that showed how all the different social platforms are growing together. What that means for advertisers and retailers is that you need to have a strategy that is cross-channel, right? You may have depended 80% of the time on Instagram so far. That might change by a pretty big margin this year. So we're essentially calling it pretty much like the social network and coming up with a strategy that allows you to amplify your reach across multiple channels. While it sounds pretty straightforward, it's a lot difficult than just saying it from a strategy standpoint. The reason being, every channel, be it Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, every channel has its own strengths, and they also seem to have a very strong following in certain demographics. So when you go from one channel to, let's say, 5 channels, it is not just dividing your advertising budget from 1 to 5, and you have to factor a lot more things. First and foremost, you need to have a full funnel strategy that is spread across these channels, where each channel might play a specific role. For example, if you have a customer segment that is not currently a focus area for you, that is where Snapchat and TikTok can potentially come in. So an aspirational customer segment that you might want to acquire, let's say 5 years down the line, you may want to start talking to them today, exposing them to the brand and building a connection. The next important thing here is developing a strategy for both discovery and outreach across all these channels. And while you do this, a very important component that comes in is your copy and your creative strategy. A creator that works on Facebook might not really work on TikTok. That might not work on Pinterest. And this is where channel-specific content strategies also need to be developed. And if you connect this back to what Zara was mentioning about the organic approach, while all these channels are important. Every channel and every customer who is on these channels has a certain persona. And it's interesting to see how something like a carousel ad might do really well on Facebook. Whereas when it comes to Pinterest, it might be the traditional static image ad with just a text overlay. And while you build out the strategy going forward, an important component that needs to be factored in is how exactly do you measure success across these platforms? This is where, from the NetElixir perspective, we have developed a proprietary technology called Elixir Insights. And what this tool essentially does is it tracks every single customer who comes to your site, and over the period of, let's say, 90 to 180 days, it tries to build a persona for you in terms of understanding if there's a high value customer, do they typically start on Pinterest, let's say on day one, and come back directly to your site maybe 3 months later? Or a customer who starts on Snapchat or let's say on Facebook might come back within 2 weeks. So these are some questions that we are trying to answer for our existing clients. And understandably, it's a space that needs a lot more study as we move forward, but something to look out for this year. So that essentially takes us to the next strategy, which is something that we hear pretty much every single day when we talk to prospects and our existing clients, is that it is not easy to measure success on social. And we get it, right? Because one, you have multiple social channels. And secondly, there is so much branding that happens on social media when you talk about view through activity or just the sheer upper funnel activity that happens on social media might not translate into your existing third-party analytics. For example, if you're using Google Analytics or Omniture, Adobe, these tools might not have the framework or the architecture to do justice to when it comes to social media. And we, as I mentioned, we get it. So what we're essentially trying to figure out is, within all the constraints that we have currently in the market, how do we best address this scenario? And to add on to this challenge, I'm sure I think all of you might have heard so many news articles coming out around user privacy, data constraints, be it on Facebook, on TikTok, and some of those issues blew up a lot last year. And very recently, I think one of the ongoing discussion items is the latest update from Apple on iOS 14, which seems to be prohibiting Facebook from a lot of measurement capabilities. The third-party cookies, which will be completely sunset on Google Chrome next year, will add on another layer of complexity to the already existing measurement questions. What we're aspiring to do is, while these problems will keep happening, right, measurement will only get more complicated. What we truly believe as an agency is that the contribution of social media or the importance of social media in your overall digital strategy is not going down, it is only going up. So to solve this issue, we have come up with basically 3 recommendations. First of all, work with your existing agency, your in-house teams, or your social media partners to develop some models that can help you understand the correlation between incremental volume on social media to reach and conversions. And this by no means is a linear curve, right? Where you say that, all right, if my impressions go by 20%, my revenue will also go by 20%. That is definitely not the case. But what we are trying to ascertain is, while we do have the ability to drive traffic and measure the impact of traffic, the conversions may not be completely tracked, especially now with the iOS update. So if you are able to ascertain a certain value, saying that every 2% lift in reach or in impressions on social media might lead to, let's say, a 0.5% incremental reach in revenue, that model can be used in a scalable way. And you will still have last click measurement and many other models available through your third-party platforms. To take this further, what we also recommend is do the same exercise, and instead of connecting social media clicks to social media revenue, now connect social media traffic to your own owned media and earned media. This is where something like Google Analytics or Omniture, Core Metrics, all these platforms can come in handy. Or if you are using the DoubleClick suite, DCM can be a great tool to do that, wherein any incremental lift that you get on social media over a period of time, let's say over the next 30 days or 60 days, how does that effectively lead to a brand lift on your Google side or on the organic side? And that correlation again can go a very long way in helping you make the right decisions for your social media investment. And the last tip, which again is probably the most important one, is that if you do not already have an existing first-party customer data process, please prioritize that in 2021. Because with all the challenges surrounding data privacy, the likes of Google, Facebook, Apple, they can all keep changing all their policies. But at the end of the day, your customer data is all yours, right? No one can essentially take that away from you. So if you are not doing this already, please do set up a process using a framework, using a tool to essentially clean up, segment, and effectively map your first-party data using some rules. This can go a very long way, one, to retarget and retain your existing customers, and more importantly, act as contextual signals to all the other platforms that you are advertising on to try and reach out to the right customer. With that, we come into the last and the final tip for the day, which is essentially a culmination of everything that we discussed today, right? The one big reason why, as an agency, we are focusing so much on social media and paid social specifically is that unlike many other platforms out there that are completely dependent on the consumer's intent, social media can break those barriers. Get your brand in front of people who are not even thinking about you right now, or not even your product right now. And I'm sure most of you would agree that for many of the products that you're selling currently on your site, you don't really need to be in a consideration set. As if you're selling a water bottle, right? Or if you're selling a t-shirt, you can essentially convince a customer to consider buying that product, even if they don't need it right now. Because there is a lot of pent-up demand in the market, especially through 2020, which is just waiting to be tapped into. This concept is essentially called as serendipitous discovery. And as I mentioned, social media leads the pack in enabling brands to do this. While paid social is a great way to do this, what we are increasingly seeing now, and this is something which was also in the news last year, is that social commerce as a channel has been evolving at a rapid pace. So we are talking about the likes of Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, creating shoppable environments within their apps. And interestingly, if you look at the US market, in 2021, the total sales that will be generated by just this component will be upwards of $36 billion. And as you can see in the two graphs here, there are a significant number of users or consumers in the US market who are open to buying products online without leaving the social media apps. This is a pretty big step forward for many social platforms due to two reasons. One, they are able to take the learnings from the market leaders like Amazon and create a very bottom of the funnel shoppable platforms within the apps. And secondly, this is pretty much a very big answer to all the privacy constraints that are out there in the market today. Because each of these social commerce platforms are essentially walled gardens. So when you are shopping on Facebook Shop, that data lives within Facebook. A lot of the cookie-based updates might not affect Facebook at that point. And as long as a brand, you are convinced that this is the right place for me to invest, and my consumers would like to shop from my brand on this particular platform, it's a very straightforward strategy to invest on these platforms. The big ones right now in the market are obviously Facebook Shop, Instagram Shop, and Pinterest has also created a very interactive shoppable platform, which is growing at a very fast pace in 2021. So if social commerce is not something you are looking at today, we would highly recommend including that in your strategy for 2021. If not in a very evolved stage, at least start thinking about it. With that, I'll hand it back to Heather.
All right, thank you, Manish. Before we get to our Q&A, I wanted to share a few resources with you. So feel free to submit any questions that you have via the chat box or the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen. So our first resource that I'm excited to share, we recently just released our 2021 Faces ebook. It's our primary research report that details how online shopping behavior of high-value customers has changed throughout 2020 in response to the new digital initiatives caused by the pandemic. So you can get your free copy now at netelixir.com/faces. I just added the link here to the chat box. Next, as Zara mentioned, be sure to get your copy of the 10 best practices for organic social media ebook, which will provide you and your team with insightful NetElixir recommended tips to help you grow your social presence and expand to different and new social channels. So with that, let's get started with the Q&A. Our first question comes from Nick. Manish, this question is for you. Nick would like to know, he's a CBD company and he can't advertise on Instagram, Facebook, or Google Ads. Is there a TikTok friendly to CBD advertising?
Awesome. So that is a tricky one, Nick. I completely understand your concerns there. So the answer to that, Nick, is there are a lot of CBD companies that are leveraging TikTok. It is not a very open environment as such. So if I go specifically by TikTok's policy, CBD is something that is regulated and they don't allow on that. But what we have seen is that a lot of brands are following a lot of shadow practices as such to use influencers and be present on TikTok to some degree. And for most of those brands, within a few days or weeks, TikTok typically takes that content down. So that is what we have seen. But in general, what we have also seen with a lot of the CBD companies and some of the other products that are regulated is that influencer marketing in itself is a lot more acceptable. Again, we can't really guarantee whether that will be the case by the end of this year. But as of today, influencers are able to get away with a lot of that restricted content by calling it out on their bios. Yeah.
Thank you, Manish. Zara, we have a question from Linda. Linda would like to know, should my company have a presence on every social network? Zara?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Sure. Linda would like to know, should my company have a presence on every social network?
So I would say for that, like I said in the presentation, you want to first find out where, where are your customers, where are your users, and what platform are they using more, rather than trying to really be everywhere. I would say that pick 2 platforms that you can really master, and then branch out, right? Build a following on at least 2 platforms. I would say Instagram is crucial for any brand. And second, you would have to see, is your audience much older? Are they more so on TikTok or Facebook? So that's what I would say for that.
Awesome, thank you. And we have one more question. Manish, this question is for you. Jeff would like to know, how do you measure success of new customer acquisition campaigns on paid social?
Awesome. That's a great question. And that's obviously something that we've been trying to figure out for a long time as well. So there are a few ways to do that. First and foremost, the recommendation is to move away from a ROAS-based goal or a return on ad spend-based goal. And something that we started doing is for all the prospecting campaigns, we have now started looking at the true new-to-file customers who are driven from that campaign, either through a view-through conversion or a click-through conversion, and then assigning a value that we call cost per new customer or cost per new user. While CPMs and CPCs are the traditional way of looking at data, we are using cost per new user as one of the metrics that allows us to understand if a campaign is doing its job of driving new customers. From a last click standpoint, what we also do is use a very established metric called as assist ratio in Google Analytics, which is essentially the ratio between the assisted conversions to your last click conversions. For paid social campaigns, that ratio typically tends to be well over 3x. Or in other words, for every order that is driven directly by a social campaign, it will also assist or influence anywhere from 3 to 10 other orders, somewhere else in the conversion cycle.
Thank you, Manish. So those are all the questions that we have for today. I really want to thank our audience for joining us today. I hope you found this webinar insightful in growing your strategies. I just want to let everyone know that the recording will be sent to you tomorrow morning. And if you need a copy of the slides, just message us. We'll be happy to provide them to you. I want to thank Manish, Zara, and Jennifer for joining us today. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you.